Welcome back. Links in the description if you don't remember what happened last time, but we're really not that far into the story just yet. Rudius destroyed part of his house, and now he's going to learn more magic. The tutor shows up pretty soon after the job was posted. The light novel says it's literally the next day after the job was posted. A small girl named Roxy Muguria. Lolly, scornful gaze, unsociable, 3 traits that equal perfection. I want to marry her. So where is the student I'll be teaching? Oh, he's right here. You see them sometimes. Idiot parents who think their kids have talent just because they're an early bloomer. I understand. I'll do what I can. They go out into the yard so that she can test him, and the anime gives us a little more information on magic. It's mostly stuff we've already got from the light novel, but there is still a little bit more we could talk about. Magic is divided into 7 ranks: beginner, intermediate, advanced, saint, king, imperial, and divine. I got this from the wiki, and it's the same as the light novel. I've seen different labels used for each level, but I like these, so I'm going to stick with it. It's pretty simple. The higher the spell rank, the stronger the spell. And Brutus can already use intermediate magic. This was said earlier in the light novel, and the anime just decided to put it here. Anyway, I'll start by demonstrating an incantation, so repeat after me. Do you need the incantation? Of course you do. Roxy begins the chant and raises her staff. Water ball. The ball flies out, destroying a small tree in the process. Kinda wish the anime had included this, but in the light novel, he is so used to using water ball that he can guess the speed and the size of the spell that she is using. He says that this one is a size 3, speed 4. And it doesn't add a whole lot to the story, but it's an extra step in showing how much he has practiced this spell. My mom worked really hard to raise that tree, so I think she's gonna get mad. After fixing her mistake, Roxy comes back. Now, you try it. Rudius gets up. Casting magic without the incantation might be taboo, so just in case, he starts reciting, but gets distracted. The spell fires off, hitting the same tree. Rudius doesn't know a whole lot about the outside world or magic, and he's already learned that the world's views on magic are wrong, so it's not completely out of the question that someone would get upset about him doing things differently. But then he just admits the truth the second he's questioned. Like, why even cover it up if you're just gonna crack so easily? In the light novel, he doesn't get distracted. He just forgets the incantation. Even after Roxy gives it to him twice, he starts to say it, and then halfway through, he just doesn't remember the rest, so he says fuck it, and then just sends it. You cut the incantation short. Do you always abridge it like that? I usually just skip it. Skip it? It looks like you will be worth training. They go inside. An array of food is displayed on the table. Let's get Roxy's welcome party started. It's like a dream. In this world, I bet even I could make it. If I live and try as hard as everyone else, get back up when I fall, and keep facing forward, maybe I can do it. Maybe even a jobless, reclusive bum like me can get a do-over at life and get serious about living. It's a nice, sentimental scene, and it is anime only. The light novel skips over the whole party and everything and just gives us more stuff on magic. And I'm not going to go over all of it right now. I'll probably end up making a separate video to talk about all the magic details. The anime finally decides to go over his backstory, like from his previous life. And we've already gotten the whole thing in the light novel from way back at the beginning, so I'm not going to go over it again, but the anime decides to move it from then to here. Rudius wakes up in his room, surrounded by clay figures. Oh, right. I was making figures with earth magic, partly for training. I guess I must have run out of MP. The light novel says that he was practicing magic, but doesn't really say what he was doing. I mean, it's pretty soon after him talking about manipulating shapes and stuff, so it's not out of the question that he will be making clay figures, but the light novel doesn't say anything about that. It doesn't give really any details on what he was doing. He destroys his work and turns his attention to the noise coming from his parents' room. They are really going at it. I'm hoping for a little sister. It's explained in the light novel, but he says that he doesn't want a little brother because his little brother treated him like shit before he died in his last life. He distinctly remembers that his little brother is the one who took a baseball bat to his computer before he was kicked out of the house. And he is done with that shit. Why don't I try saying something to them this time? Mommy, Daddy, what are you doing naked? I can't wait to hear them all flustered. As soon as he steps out of the room, he sees Roxy down the hall. She is very clearly listening intently to the noise. Rudius decides to go back to his room. Roxy's a growing girl. Even I have the decency to pretend I didn't see anything. Just kidding. Man, what a feast for the eyes. It's exactly what it sounds like. I have actually cut out some of the horniness from this story. Now I have to keep some of it in for the themes, the plot, if you will. It's been 6 months since Roxy got here. She's a good teacher. Her classes are interesting and fun. Thanks to her, I can use up to intermediate magic now, no problem. He did use intermediate magic before. I mean, that's the entire reason that he got a tutor in the first place. So he has mastered intermediate magic in 6 months. Well, it's 6 months in the anime, it's 4 months in the light novel. I have no idea whether that's fast or slow. At this point in the story, we haven't really got a whole lot of information on how long it takes to get to each level, but I would guess that that is fast. One thing that's not covered in the anime, Rudius wants to learn summoning magic, mainly just because he wants to learn more magic stuff. But Roxy doesn't know how to use summoning magic, so she can't teach him. At this point, Rudius starts getting night classes, and we get a history lesson. Magic supposedly originated in the distant past, when a certain race spoke to the spirits and used wind and earth to defend themselves from external threats. It's elves. I have no idea why the anime decided not to say the race that came up with magic. But that's what it is. It's high elves, to be specific. Modern magic is a result of humans imitating that magic and formalizing it during their long war with demonkind. I'm surprised. This world has spirits and demons in it too, huh? Of course it does. Oh, I'm a demon myself, by the way. Didn't you notice how surprised Paul and Zenith were to see me? Because you're so tiny, right? I'm not tiny. They were surprised to see my hair color. You can actually see her messing with her hair on the day that they met. So even though no one brings it up at that time, she is still self-conscious about it. Haven't you heard of a terrifying race of demons called the Superd? No? Are they scary? Very. 4 or 5 centuries ago, there was a big war between humans and the demons called the Laplace War. In that war, the Superd went on a rampage. They slaughtered friend and foe alike without regard for women or children. That earned them the hatred of every race. After the war ended, I'm told they were driven from the demon continent. That shows how dangerous they are. Never go near anyone with an emerald green hair and what looks like a red gem in their forehead. In the light novel, Roxy says that the closer a demon's hair color is to green, the more savage they tend to be. And of course, this is just superstition, but it's going to be important later. She also says that the gem on their forehead is used to see the flow of magic, which is pretty fucking cool, honestly. I'm pronouncing it as Laplace because I think that's the better way of saying it. In Japanese, it's Rapurasu. For some reason, the English dub pronounces it as Laplace, which I think is fucking stupid. I think it's in reference to Laplace's demon, so that's what I'm going to stick with. After a year into his tutoring, Rudius' magic prowess continues to grow. At this point, his mana pool is high enough that he doesn't run out. His swordsmanship, however, is not at the same level. Paul is a natural with the sword, and teaches as if it should come natural to Rudius. But he just isn't good at it. Granted, he is only 4, so he's got a little time to grow. And this isn't in the light novel. Well, at least not at this point. It is, but it's later on. About the only thing that the light novel has said about his sword training is that he hasn't had much yet. Mainly because he's so young and his body just isn't up for that just yet. So what he's been doing so far has been conditioning and exercising and all that, just to get his body used to moving. The light novel has all of this happen after Rudy turns 5. Paul is shit at explaining how he does things, and Rudius thinks that magic is somehow involved in it, which would explain how Paul is able to slice a boulder in half with ease. The problem is that Paul isn't really doing it consciously, so he can't really explain it very well. And again, this is all just guessing on Rudy's part, but it does make sense. And it's another reason why Rudy keeps pushing himself to learn it, because this is just another magic subject for him to get into. Fun fact about this world, they don't have lances or anything like it, mainly because the Superb used tridents, and they are hated so much that no one wants to be anything like them at all. So there are no lances. Look there. Far to the north of here, beyond those mountains, is a country called Renoa. The Renoa University of Magic is the best school of magic in the world. If you want to keep walking the path of magic, I recommend you go there. I'd have to leave the house before I could... Nothing. I don't need to go all the way out there. You're the only master I need. Don't call me your master. I'm sure you'll surpass me easily. This is an interesting scenario that happens multiple times throughout the series. He's a fucking genius. He is a prodigy, but he doesn't really have that mindset. He's still partially stuck in his past life and all of the mental hangups that he had back then. Other people can see how great he can be, even if he doesn't. Roxy feels inferior. She doesn't take it out on him or anything, but she also doesn't want him to hold her up on a pedestal when she knows that he is going to be the better mage. And we'll see how this type of scenario plays out with others as the story goes on. The school suggestion doesn't happen in the light novel until later. I mean, not a lot later, it's after he turns 5, but the anime decides to switch it around to happen now instead. I'm not really sure why. It doesn't really change anything for the story regardless. Instead of talking about school, they talk about Roxy helping out the village. For money! Now, she is more than happy to get the extra cash, and the villagers are more than happy to get the help. So it's a win-win for everybody. This world doesn't celebrate birthdays. Instead, they celebrate every 5 years, at 5, 10, and 15 years old. Once you turn 15, you're considered an adult. Today, Rudius turns 5. How long has it been since anyone celebrated my birthday? Ever since I became a recluse, even tax day would be more exciting. I've forgotten this feeling. It's surprisingly nice. The adults each give him a gift. Paul gives him a sword. It's 2 swords in the light novel, a practice one and a real one. Zenith gives him a book. It's a botanical encyclopedia. Plants and shit. And Roxy gives him a wand. This is a magic stone. It acts to amplify magic power, so it should be useful. Students who master beginner magic are customarily given wands, but you could already use it, so it slipped my mind. My apologies. He's able to use advanced magic now, so it is well past the normal time to get a wand. In fairness, he is learning pretty quick, I think. Again, I have no idea about the normal time span on learning magic. There's now very little left that I'm able to teach you. Rudy, I'll hold your graduation exam tomorrow. This conversation happens during his 5th birthday party in the anime, but in the light novel, there's a few more things that happen between his party and the final exam. First off, Rudy finally starts his sword training. Now, the sword mastery ranking is pretty much the same list as the magic ranking. Paul is advanced in all 3 sword styles, but he's only teaching Rudy 2. He's teaching the sword god style and the water god style. Now, the differences between all these and the details of how they work really kind of need to be in their own video, so I'm not going to talk about those right now. The light novel does point out that it generally takes a person 10 years to become advanced in one technique, and the fact that Paul is advanced in all 3 at a young age shows how talented he really is. One thing that's done better in the light novel is them pushing Rudy to learn both sword and magic. I mean, no one's discouraging him from learning anything, but in the anime, it definitely feels like Paul is only about the sword, and Roxy is only about magic. In the light novel, they both push him to learn both. They both recognize that he is really good with magic, and they encourage him to keep learning the sword. They want him to become more of a mage knight. Well, Paul isn't really a huge fan of that term. He sees a mage knight as a person who fights with a sword and occasionally casts magic, but he thinks that Rudius is going to be the opposite of that, someone who casts magic more often and occasionally fights with a sword. But I mean, overall, he agrees. Throughout the story, we get Rudius's motivation. He feels like he failed in his past life and he wants to not fail in this life. And that extends to his parents. Part of the reason he wants to learn the sword is because he wants a good relationship with Paul. In his past life, he treated his family like shit, and they did the same to him. And he doesn't want that to happen again. So he pushes himself to learn because he thinks that will make Paul proud. I mean, it's not his main reason for wanting to learn, but it is a factor. On the magic side of things, Rudia starts to learn how to combine different types of magic. I mean, we see him do it later on in the anime, but this is where he actually starts to learn how to do it. Hello, it's me from the future, or the present, and everything else is me from the past. Look, I was editing and I noticed I fucked up on something. So, in the anime, he actually does use the combo spells actually before his 5th birthday party, and I don't know how I missed it, but here is me correcting that mistake. And this combining spells is very rudimentary. It's just cast this spell, now cast this spell, and this is the results. I mean, to get mist or fog to form takes like 3 different spells. Rudius says, fuck that. If he wanted a fog, he could just make the rain spell but put it close to the ground. And it's this kind of thinking outside of the box that doesn't seem too common in this world. Granted, we're only seeing one mage, so maybe it's just her, but I kind of figured like that creativeness would have been taught at university. But then again, I mean, look at American schools. Speaking of school, this is when Roxy suggests for him to go to the university. And in the same conversation, she says it's final exam time. So the anime just kind of switched the order around. His life is moving forward, and it causes him to remember his past. Even in a new body, in a new world, his fear of leaving the house is still there. Instead of being stuck in his room, the barrier just moved to the fence outside the house. Outside? Yes, outside the village. Can't we do it in the garden? We cannot. You act your age when I least expect it. Roxy picks him up and puts him on the horse. As they approach the gate, fear starts to set in. Visions of his past trauma bombard him. Master, I can't. Don't worry, I'm with you, so there's nothing to be afraid of. Rudius opens his eyes. They're past the gate, down the road. He sees people in the fields. Others on horseback. Don't look at me. Why are you all staring? Thanks for the other day. Morning, Roxy. They're all looking at Roxy. What was I afraid of? Who's going to make fun of me in a peaceful village like this? What's wrong? Are you still scared? No, I'm fine now. Trauma dealt with. Kind of. Baby steps. He's now okay with going further outside, which is definitely an improvement. The light novel says that the village is called Buena Village, so just good village, I guess. And it's made up of about 30 families. Paul was actually sent there to do a couple of jobs. Protect the villagers, settle disputes, and make sure that they are doing their jobs. He's basically a government-appointed sheriff slash mayor. He's a low-ranking noble. This looks like a good spot. I will now use a saint-level water magic. I'm only going to cast this once. Watch closely, memorize it, and then cast it. That's your final exam. Roxy walks forward and starts the incantation. The wind picks up. Dark clouds start to form overhead. Cumulonimbus. A torrent of rain falls, soaking everything. The wind blows so hard that Rudius is almost swept away. Lightning crashes at the tree nearby, hitting their horse. Roxy cancels the spell and rushes over to heal the horse. Once it is stabilized, Roxy surrounds them in a shell of earth, while Rudius prepares to cast the spell himself. A final exam. That means this is the end of our home tutoring. That makes this our last day. He begins the incantation. The clouds go dark. The rain and the wind pick up. I wish I had talked with her more. The massive storm rages overhead. Rudius lets the storm go for a bit before clearing everything away, bringing the weather back to normal. I didn't tell you to make it bigger than my demonstration. It's a shame. Now there really is nothing I can teach you. Congratulations, you are now a saint level water mage. Your rank as a mage is just the highest level spell that you can cast. And this doesn't start until saint level. So if you're just at advanced magic, then you just don't have a title. And right now, both of them would be considered water saint mages. The exam is slightly different in the light novel. I think we just get more info on what the exam actually is. So he is supposed to keep the spell up for an hour. But Rudius overthinks it and thinks he is supposed to use combo magic to keep it going. He knows a little bit about how supercells work, so he just heats the ground and cools the airway above and creates the condition to let the spell run on its own. This isn't what Roxy expected, but at that point, I think it's pretty obvious he knows what he's doing. You don't have to leave, Roxy. Yeah, the villagers would love to have you around. I'm deeply grateful, but I plan to travel the world and hone my magic abilities over again. Rudy, I did the best I could, but it seems I lack the ability to guide you. That's not true. You taught me all sorts of things, Master. Oh yes, this is a charm from my hometown. I didn't have time to prepare a graduation gift, so this will have to do. I'll treasure it. That would make me happy. Now, it's time that I go. Goodbye. Master, thank you very much. I really did get a lot from her. Knowledge, experience, technique. But more importantly, she brought me outside. It was definitely a trauma I was carrying. She healed it for me. Young as she is, I've given her my deepest respect. Or so I declared. But I still had a pair of Roxy's panties I stole a few months ago. We can't have emotional moments without throwing in horniness? What the fuck you think we're doing here? Okay, this is a pretty big deal. His family in his past life tried to be there for him whenever he was going through the bullying, and they tried to encourage him to leave the house. But he stayed a shut-in. And it only got worse over time. Paul and Zenas couldn't get him to leave the house either. I'm not really sure how hard they tried, but there's a very good chance he would have ended up stuck in the same situation that he was in his past life. He trusted Roxy enough to take the risk. Roxy is the reason that he is able to push past that trauma, and he fully recognizes it, which is the reason why he keeps her holy relic. Rudis has made a lot of strides forward. His magic is pretty great. He's conquered some trauma, and next time we'll see how his normal life goes without Roxy. See ya.